Evening, everybody. Evening. I think we have a few folks in here tonight. Welcome to the National Press Club, the world's leading professional organization for journalists. I'm Jeff Ballou. I'm the news editor for the Americas with Al Jazeera English, and the 110th president of the National Press Club for at least the next few weeks. I'm done on January 19th, where we have elected our president-elect, Andrea Edney of Bloomberg News, on Friday, and she will take the gavel on January 19th. So we wish her congratulations. Some housekeeping. Almost everybody in here probably has some sort of smartphone or device that beeps or tweaks or something. Now is the time to silence it. We notice I didn't say turn it off, because in this atmosphere, unlike 20 years ago or 30 years ago, we encourage you to tweet. And we do have a handle at Press Club DC using the hashtag headliners. Again, that's at Press Club DC using the hashtag headliners. So we do encourage you to tweet throughout the evening. And I want to pub a couple of things that are coming up. We have a lot of books going in the back half of 2017 tonight with Donna's book, and tomorrow night, Playing with Fire. Lawrence O'Donnell on MSNBC hosted The Last Word, his book that's about the 1968 election and the transformation of American politics. My predecessor, Thomas Burr, will be hosting that. And you'll have me back on the 18th on this lovely book, this small little tiny thing. Walter Isaacson. What's this about Louisianans this week and next week? But yes, Walter Isaacson in his book on Leonardo da Vinci. He never writes a small book. And we'll discuss it at a breakfast on the 18th. Now, some thank yous. We have people who work very hard to arrange these events for you, and our headliners team responsible for organizing tonight's event. And if you're in the room, you can stand and be recognized. Our co-chairs, Betsy Fisher-Martin in the back, in the blue dress. And Lisa.
Hold on. She's a Louisiana.
Another Louisiana, I know.
And although we're days and years apart, she also went to my high school. See, I say my high school, it's our high school, Grace King. Go Colleens, Shamrocks Fall. Amen.
All right, and Lisa Matthews.
That's Lisa.
I don't think she can be with us tonight, but she's done some great work for us together. Lisa and Betsy as our co-chairs, Jamie Horowitz, Lori Russo, Heather Forskin-Weaver, and April Turner, and so many more members of the team have worked very hard throughout this 110th presidency to reorganize what we do and how we do it here in terms of bringing news headliners to you, and I'm very grateful to them. And also our club staff. The team has a staff liaison, Lindsay Underwood, who you saw outside coming in. Also Laura Coker, who manages the office of the club president, and Bill McCarron, who is our staff executive director. I see Suzanne Serglinski, our director of membership, in the back, and so many other folks that work very hard to keep this club running every single day. That when we're not having these sorts of discussions, you can come here and eat at our restaurants and visit our library and use our broadcast center. These guys work and of course working so hard for the 3,005 members we have worldwide, and that's really important. One little serious note before we get into the discussion. Throughout the year, I've been traveling on the theme of saying we are the Constitution, and part of that are speaking about the First Amendment and speaking specifically about protecting my colleagues. You may have noticed this week we've gone really almost nuclear on protecting one, and that is Emilio Gutierrez Soto, who was our John Aubuchon Press Freedom Award winner this year. He fled Mexico over a decade ago when he exposed corruption in the Mexican military under pain of death. He and his son, Oscar, here in this country. Sadly, and speaking of protecting and defending the Constitution, our own, the United States government has been fervently trying to deport him back to Mexico, which is almost certainly a death sentence. We have, you probably saw the Post editorial this morning, and in other ways we have been pushing. We had a press conference yesterday and some other things that we are actually passionate that you cannot, on one hand, say you're going to protect and defend the Constitution and undermine one of the most basic principles, and that is protecting a free and independent press, who, in this case, somebody who is now in detention under horrible conditions in El Paso. He was in even worse conditions outside of El Paso, and we're trying to fight with all manner of power in our hands, with Congress, with our colleagues, whomever we can find. We will leave no stone unturned until we can find Emilio Gutierrez Soto asylum. So with that, Ms. Brazile and I will be speaking for about 15, 20 minutes, and we're going to take some questions. I've been getting a lot of emails and calls and texts, and you're one of the more highly anticipated guests tonight.
Did anyone troll you?
That happened long before you know.
Well,
I started getting trolled when I got elected,
okay.
so I'm kind of used to it now.
And you know
Not about you.
And you know about bots?
Yes, we do.
All right.
And that,
As long as
you cover that a little bit in this book. So, anyway, if you also haven't purchased your book, we encourage you to do that. We'll have a bit of a signing, organized signing after this is done. And the proceeds from tonight's event go towards our National Press Club Journalism Institute, which is focused on freedom of the press, scholarship, journalism, education, and excellence. Now, and diversity amongst the working press. Donna Brazile, as many of you know, is a political strategist, author, and was the interim chair of the Democratic National Committee during the 2016 general election, and has served on the committee at other levels, including being a vice chair and a host of other titles for many, many years. A native, as she has let you know in no uncertain terms, of the great city of New Orleans. In her first book, a best-selling autobiography, Cooking with Grease During the Pots in American Politics, was a best-selling book, and which I do have, which I enjoyed reading. She was the first African-American woman to direct a major presidential campaign, acting as campaign manager for former Vice President Al Gore in 2000. She has worked on several presidential campaigns for Democratic candidates, including Jesse Jackson, Walter Mondale, Dick Gephardt. The list goes on and on and on. And she has the scars to show. In the 1990s, Ms. Brazile served as Chief of Staff and Press Secretary to Congressional Delegate Eleanor Holmes Norton here in the District of Columbia, where she helped guide the district's budget and local legislation on Capitol Hill, and she also served as an advisor to Bill Clinton, former President Bill Clinton's campaign for the presidency in '92 and his reelection in '96. And of course, tonight's book, she made quite a few headlines. And the formal title, of course, is Hacks, the Inside Story of the Break-ins and Breakdowns that Put Donald Trump in the White House, and her take on the Hillary Rodham Clinton campaign, former Secretary of State Hillary Rodham Clinton, that enabled a victory by Donald Trump. We look forward to our dialogue today about her new book and the controversy that has ensued around it. So let's give a warm National Press Club welcome to Donna Brazile.
Thank you. Thank you. So you call my book controversial, but I call what happened in 2016 controversial. The fact that the country was under attack, that we got hacked by a foreign government, that one political party came under direct attack that sought to divide us, to sow discord and discredit our nominee. So the fact that my book was written and released and then attacked, I have relived the experience I went through last year in the last couple of weeks. But I am more than ever grateful that Hachette allowed me to publish it, that I had agents who believed in me, and I had a journalist. I sought the help of a journalist in writing this book. And I mentioned in my acknowledgement section the importance of having someone with press credentials. You know, I'm a pundit with a partisan point of view, although at times I played like a journalist on television, but I am not a journalist. You might have seen that I was in the House of Cards. Yeah, I know. I'm glad Robin is going to become president now. I've also been a part of The Good Wife and Being Mary Jane. But after all these years in American politics, I'm probably best suited for the Game of Thrones. Because
Which character?
Yeah. I'll put it this way. I'm not sleeping with a king. I'm not going to slay any dragon, but I'd be damned if I get, you know, destroyed after the first episode. I'm resilient. No, the book, Maya Angelou said, Jeff, that there's no greater agony than bearing an untold story inside of you. When this election ended on Tuesday, November 8th, I had to go back to the DNC on Wednesday, November 9th. In fact, I had to stick around the DNC until the election of new officers. I went all over the country, helping to reshape the Democratic Party, to rebuild the Democratic Party. And remember, folks, I wasn't a paid staff member of the Hillary Clinton campaign or any of the senatorial campaigns, congressional campaigns, state and local campaigns. I was an unpaid officer of the Democratic Party who stepped up for the second time to serve as chair of the party. And I believed, after going across this country, helping to organize the forums that would lead to the election of new officers, I thought and assumed that someone from the quote-unquote Clinton campaign would write the story. And after I consulted with Robbie Mook on several occasions and told him, gave him heads up, that I was going to write the book if he did not write the book, then I went ahead and got it done. And I want to say tonight I'm grateful for Danielle Martin, who I mentioned in the acknowledgement. She's a former reporter for the New York Times, San Jose Mercury News, as well as People Magazine. The People Magazine was the one that really got it. I said, yeah, I want somebody with some color. And Danielle helped me. So she didn't just put a microphone in front of me, but she shared all of my data, all of my material, all of my existing emails, those that were not quote-unquote hacked or corrupted or deleted. But I'm profoundly grateful to her and others, as well as Walter Isaacson, who blurred my book. Walter was a reporter at the New Orleans Times-Picayune State's Item when I was just a young, quote-unquote, intern in the mayoral office, and we became friends. And later in life, Walter became president of CNN. I went to work for CNN. And then most recently, about not 17 years ago, during Hurricane Katrina, Walter became the vice chair of the Louisiana Recovery Authority, and I became a member of the Louisiana Recovery Authority. So we're friends for life, and I just want to tell you that his book is delightful. It's long, but Walter is one of the best writers and best reporters I know, and I want to thank you also for your friendship over the years and your leadership here at the National Press Club. So that's my introduction. Happy Hanukkah.
Thanks, Donna. Oh, before we get into the book, I want to deal with some current news.
Okay.
We have a Senate race going on tonight.
I'm familiar.
So it'd be poor journalism of me if I didn't ask you to handicap the race.
You know, the last time I was in Alabama just a few weeks ago, and someone asked me, and they said, what do you think? I said, well, the DNA here, the territory, it is red. It's redder than Mississippi and redder than Louisiana. If you can, you know, this is crimson red. Those of you who understand football. Go Tide. Well, I'm an LSU girl, so be careful. Go Tigers, although y'all keep beating us, and it's not fair. That's why I'm going to root for Alabama, but I'm also rooting for Georgia, too. Um,
You're not going to give us Big Ten folks a break?
no,
Oh, come
I'm
on.
SEC all the way. I think Doug has a chance. It's a small chance. I mean, a year ago, if you would have asked me about this Senate race, or even 11 months ago after Jeff Sessions became the Attorney General, I would have. It's a red state. I mean, there's no two ways about it. Even with a significant black population, a very progressive tradition in several cities in Alabama, it is a tough state. So I am hoping that Doug can overcome all of the odds and pull off an upset tonight. It would be an upset. Remember, Donald Trump carried the state by 28%. But here's the thing that matters. Democrats are competing everywhere. Democrats are no longer cherry picking the states and the races that we will support. Doug has received significant resources and support from the DNC as well as others. As you know, President Obama and the former vice president and former president recorded robocalls, although I believe Michelle would have been the key, but that's a whole different conversation. It's still an uphill battle. I mean, Donald Trump has put significant resources. The Republican National Committee has decided to renew their support. They have considerable what I call support there and resources. They have been competing since 1986 and 1992. 1986 is the last Senate race. 1992 is the last statewide race the Democratic Party played in. So I just want everybody to just, we'll see what happens in about another hour and 10 minutes when the polls close. But this is going to be a very difficult race, tough race. But Doug is a great candidate. When I went down there, I'm proud of him, he didn't run a perfect campaign, but I thought he ran a really good campaign. And we'll see what happens.
Okay. Another current headline. You probably saw Senator Kirsten Gillibrand going toe-to-toe with the president, not just in Twitter, but in remarks over the issue of sexual harassment. During your book tour, one of the questions came up about the resurfacing of allegations against former President Clinton.
Yes.
And you said that those ladies should be heard.
Yes.
But you also said that that he was, because I'm summarizing it, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, that impeachment served as a punishment for his transgressions. Current White House Press Secretary Sarah Sanders got into a rather testy debate with journalists in the briefing room yesterday, and one of the things that came up were the allegations against President Trump before he was elected, and essentially she said, well, the election pretty much addressed any allegations that were pending towards him. While these are two very different situations, is it fair to say that both of these processes, be they elections or impeachment, should stop any recourse from those who feel aggrieved on the issue of sexual assault?
I recognize that in this atmosphere that we all, we have all been taken aback by just the sheer volume of women that have come forward, not just against Donald Trump, but those women who are now telling their truth. Me Too. Me Too is more than a hashtag. It's the pervasive culture in which many of us have had to live in, survive, work through. I can't tell you the number of friends, female colleagues that I've worked with over the years that were afraid to speak up. Afraid because they believed that they would lose their job or their status or their career would be ended because nobody would believe them. Now, I worked for Eleanor Holmes Norton and members of the House Democratic leadership when I witnessed Eleanor Holmes Norton, Jolene Ansell, Nita Lloyd, Pat Schroeder, and two other women, Barbara Boxer, I'm trying to get the memory right, back in 1991, when they had to storm across the tarmac of the United States Capitol because they feared that Anita Hill would not be heard. And today, Clarence Thomas is on the United States Supreme Court. She was scarred. Her reputation, her character, she was attacked viciously. When the allegations against Bill Clinton surfaced back in late 91, 1992, and remember they were surfacing throughout the entire time. They were surfacing from the National Enquirer to the, you want to call it the national media at the time, the mainstream media. They were surfacing. And I think at the time, what people, people were trying to balance the issue of Bill Clinton, and the Bill Clinton that they knew, and the Hillary Clinton that they were very close to, and what was happening. When Congress clearly got involved, and more women came forward to tell their story, there was a big debate within the feminist community. Back then, I was a staff person. I was not, quote unquote, the chair of anything. I didn't even have a microphone, but I did have a voice. And I believed at that time that these women had to be heard. The women today must be heard. Kristen Gillibrand is a terrific lawmaker. She has an incredible record. And for Donald Trump to try to, once again, demean her record, tear apart her character simply because he disagreed with what she's saying. What she's saying is that the Senate should hold hearings. These women should be heard. Last year, some of you all may have remembered, October 7th was the day I thought that Donald Trump would lose the race. That afternoon, we heard from the DNI finally that the intelligence agencies had concluded that the Russians did indeed attack our country through the cyberspace, the internet. And then within the hour, we had the Access Hollywood tape go viral, posted first, I'm sure, by the Washington Post and others. That went viral. And then within an hour, or maybe 90 minutes, WikiLeaks began their campaign to discredit the Clinton campaign and others, the DNC and others. And that campaign continued for the next 30 days. The story that disappeared within the next 72 hours, really, was the allegations against Mr. Trump by multiple women, not one, not two, not three, multiple women. And we didn't litigate that. We didn't have a conversation about that. So I think in hindsight, if you want to go back and relitigate the Clinton episode, if you want to relitigate the Clarence Thomas episode, fine, let's do it. If we want to relitigate all of the stuff that we're learning now about sexual misconduct, sexual assault, sexual harassment, I'm ready for that conversation. I think we all are ready for that. I had a conversation with Eleanor Holmes Norton about it because she wrote many of the sexual harassment guidelines when I was still in high school. But I do believe what the president did this morning and waking up and deciding that here's another United States senator, female United States senator, that he wanted to, the thing he put in parentheses, was it a parentheses?
In quotes,
In
quotations.
Quotes. Yeah, like she would have done anything. What he alluded to, he's vulgar. I mean, it's time that the president become the president. I don't know when he's going to wake up and say, I am president of the United States of America. This is no longer a reality show. I don't need to take a script from any page in my previous life. I need to become president. I need to really wake up and assume the office, the duties of this office. It's not going to happen. That's why I continue to pray for Donald Trump.
But to put a finer point on the original question, do both groups of women should remain having the right to sue? Not just discuss, but actually sue.
That's you asking me a legal term. I don't know what the legality of the situation. I don't know what the statutes are. I don't know
or pursue their complaints in a court of law, I should say.
Here's what I believe. I don't believe we should have different standards for different politicians and different standards for different times. I would have hoped that in 1991 we would have taken the allegations at Anita Hill seriously enough to have set a better standard for women today. But the fact that we want to now have, what about Bill Clinton? What about Donald Trump? What about, Blake Farenthold, who is still holding his job right now on Capitol Hill after the taxpayers paid $84,000 for his settlement? I am upset about that. $84,000 is a lot of money. And I don't know, I mean, that's a hell of a lot of money. John Conyers is pressured to leave, rightfully so, if again, these allegations. But here you have other members of Congress who also settled these suits. We need to know the facts. We're taxpayers. And if our money is going toward paying for their defense or paying their settlements, we need to know that. So I want one standard. We shouldn't have double standards. We shouldn't pressure, this lawmaker to do this or this president to do that. We should have one standard. If we had one standard, we would not be doing, what about Bill Clinton? What about Clarence Trump? What about Donald Trump? And let's just end it by saying that everyone should be treated with respect and dignity. And I would hope that as we begin to continue to have this awakening moment in our politics and our society, because every day, I mean, the Food Channel last night, the Comedy Channel 2 weeks ago, and then this morning I woke up to the NFL and I don't know. It's coming at such a rapid, and it's all sectors, because sexual harassment, sexual misconduct, and this kind of behavior, sexual assault, is rampant across all sectors. Just 2 days ago, the dean at Kennedy School, where I've been this semester, he reissued the guidelines. And as I'm sitting there reading, I'm like, Title IX. I mean, and we shouldn't allow the Department of Education to weaken those standards. We should not weaken these laws. We still need civil rights laws on the books. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, we're not there yet. We're not post-racial, we're not post-anything. We're still in a moment in our history where we're now awakening to this culture whereby people have been allowed to get away by abusing their power. And my book does allude a little bit to abuse of power. I'm gonna get back to the book.
Speaking of your book, but there's one thing. There's one more current headline.
All right.
But this does tie to your book. Going towards the back of the book, you start beginning and the end of the book. You start talking about the unity commissions. Well, last weekend they put out their final recommendations.
Yes.
A lot of the issues that surfaced during the campaigning talked about superdelegates. They talked about primary counters, the whole shooting match,
Debates, everything.
Debates, all of that. Are you happy about the recommendations going forward, and what's the realistic chances of those recommendations being adopted?
Chairman Perez called me months ago and wanted to know if I wanted to serve on a unity commission. I said, for the first time in my adult life, I'm going to decline. So I'm learning how to say no. I have read many of the recommendations. I read them in the media. I have not seen the official recommendations that will be made to the Rules and Bylaws Committee. Look, I want a party that is open, inclusive, a party that updates all of its procedures. What I witnessed in 2016, there's no question I would like to see a lot of changes. I'm grateful that they've put in place some administrative tools. They will also recommend an ombudsman. So the next time we have a situation when the chair of the party says, I'm going to have, and by the way, the chair of the party has enormous powers, by the way. I just declined to use all my powers. I may be a superdelegate, but I'm not a superhero. I believe that
You sure didn't bring the cape tonight?
Hell no, I don't even have a fast car. That's why it took so long to get here. But I think the recommendation will strengthen the party. It will allow the party to be more inclusive, and that the chair will work with others on the committee to set up the appropriate debate schedule, the appropriate schedule, so that every voter, every candidate feels comfortable being at the table. I'm looking forward to reading more about those recommendations.
Now, in your book, you take to task quite a few folks.
Why not?
Former President Obama, former DNC Chair Debbie Wasserman Schultz, Bernie Sanders, Secretary Clinton, Tim Kaine, Robbie Mook, former Vice President Joe Biden, Jennifer Palmieri, and Brandon Davis, who you really had to go at in the beginning of the book. I just want to do a sort of little
And myself.
And yourself, to some degree.
Yeah.
How would you, that's a little sort of rapid response, a term you're more than familiar with. How would you characterize your relationships now with the following folks? First, President Obama, post-book.
Why do I care about that?
I do, because you
why do I care
because
about
in your
that?
book,
See, I think that's an unfair
no, it's
question.
not an unfair question because in your book you said President Obama didn't enjoy raising money,
For the
help
DNC.
for the DNC, and the same with former Chairwoman Schultz, and which left the party broke and vulnerable and led to a series of other actions leading to having to have the agreement.
$24.5 million to be precise.
Exactly. So the reason I raise these questions is these people may have read your book and say, okay, fine. So how would you say your relationship is with these people on the other side of publishing this book? That's all.
Well,
Let's
first
start
of all,
with-
let's just say this. I'm going to be my mama tonight and not my daddy, because you know what my daddy said. I said it right on national TV, go to hell. And then I was...
the Dolores side that you talked about.
Well, Dolores is a very, very, very special person. Don't cross her, though. Look, I have spent over 40 years as a Democratic operative. I love my party. I've worked very, very hard for my party, but I don't have to answer to anybody but the good Lord above. I wrote this book because I wanted the lessons and the things I learned in 2016. I wanted to tell the public. I did not want the world to think that we lost to Donald Trump simply because we ran out of money, or that we didn't have good staff people, or that people like, you know, the folks that I brought into the DNC and the people who were there did not work their you-know-what off. I wanted to explain to the American people, to our donors, I owe everything to the people who helped me raise money. The kids, when I say the kids, I'm talking about the young people that I hire, the young people that many of you know about in American politics, who go out there and they live off the land. We don't pay them a lot of money. They don't get $25,000 a month. We put them out there. I had staff people with mortgages back in D.C. and paying rent to live in Brooklyn to help out Hillary Clinton. And has anyone called and said thank you to them? Has anyone called and said, are you now able to pay your mortgage? Are you back on top? So no, I wrote this book, and you saw in the end how I thanked the DNC staff, how I said I still care about Seth Rich and what happened to him. I don't owe Barack Obama, Joe Biden, Hillary Clinton. I have a lot of respect for them. I love them. They've written all of them have written their books. Has anyone asked them, have you thanked Donna lately? Have you thanked the men and women at the DNC lately? Have you thanked the donors? I have. Have you thanked all of the volunteers? I have. And let me just say this. 3 weeks ago, well, almost a month ago, I was over in Virginia. I paid my own fare, my airfare, to come back home. And I'm no longer chair. And I'm in Virginia. I'm campaigning nonstop for Kathy Train. I didn't even know who Kathy, I said, who's Kathy Train? Well, she has an uphill race. Okay, where is it? Loudoun County. My GPS didn't even know where. I mean, I was like, and you know how you drive and you're like, don't look at that. And I'm like, well, where in the hell am I? And you know what? I'm so glad I did that.
Nobody's denying that. Nobody's denying that you thanked them. But this is a fair question
it's not
to
a
say.
fair question.
Yes, it is.
I am
How do you relate to these
57
people
years
after?
old. How do I relate to them? If they decide to run for president one day, they may call me. I'm still a delegate, by the way. I have a vote. I have a voice. I wrote this book because I wanted to tell the American people, especially those who were on the battlefield with me, we were hacked. I became chair because we were hacked. And no, I didn't. No, I have not. I've heard from a lot of people, but
Have you heard from any of them since the book?
No, and by the way, if I hear from them, I hope they call to wish me a happy birthday, because I turned 58 on Friday. I'm going home to Louisiana because I want to have a good meal. No, I've heard from a lot of people. I've heard from so many people, and most of look, with the exception of the shade that was. And the criticism of people who read the excerpts, I gave Hillary Clinton campaign heads up. I gave Robbie Mook, he was up at Harvard, heads up. I gave David Seamers, who came up to Harvard, heads up. I saw David Axelrod, went up to Chicago, heads up. I didn't know anybody heads up. this was my experience. This was the experience of somebody who was chaired a party twice, who'd been a Democratic Party activist since the age of 9. I'm 56, 57, gone on 58. I have to remind myself how, because in my mind I'm 29. Yeah, so I'm celebrating the second anniversary of 29. Some days I have to tell my body, look, I know you're 57, but I don't feel that way, so you stop telling. No, but no, Jeff, I'm sadly, and this is going to floor a lot of you. I didn't hear from a lot of these people the day after the election last year, and it made me sad.
Why?
Because I had to stick around. I couldn't leave. And people say, why didn't you leave? How could I leave? I love my country.
Well, you painted a picture that made it look like you were in a funeral home in here.
Well, it was a funeral. What do you think? I mean, we lost to Donald Trump. I mean, look, I remember the experience after 37 long days in Florida of coming back home to Washington, D.C., sitting over at the DNC, trying to figure out what the hell happened. You know, especially the hanging chads and the pregnant chads and the you know, I mean, that's one thing. But to go back home and you just went through this incredible experience. I've never experienced the kind of harassment. Look, I've been called a lot of names in my life working in politics, but the name calling plus the harassment was just off the charts. The last thing I wanted to do was worry about Hillary calling or Bernie or anybody else. I worried about making sure my staff, I wanted to make sure they got paid. I wanted to make sure they had health insurance. I had to close down hundreds of offices and 3,000 plus people. My focus was not on me. My focus was on the staff people, and because I care about them.
Now, both you and Secretary Clinton, within a few months of each other, dropped your own points of view on the campaign. How would you characterize how your book has been received versus hers?
Well, we both shared one thing in common, which I thought was interesting, and that was when her book came out, people questioned the timing of it, and then they told her to shut up. And I'm like, oh my God, here we go again. A woman, why is it so hard for women to tell our story? And I was out there on Twitter, defending her right to write her book. I couldn't wait to read her book, in which I did. And to support her in every which way. I have been nothing but supportive of Hillary Clinton for over 25 years on the national stage and over 34 years as a private citizen. I've known Hillary for a long time. And I still don't know to this day if Hillary had any understanding of what was going on at the DNC. And that's why I wanted to write my book. Hopefully she will read it and speak out like me.
So you haven't spoken with her since the phone call you alluded to in this book?
No, and I'm not, my number is as listed as any numbers, but I'm not interested in that. That's not what I'm looking for. I'm not looking for a phone call. This is not about me. It's about my country that was hacked, my party that went through an unusual experience. I mean, if you went to the DNC today, the experience when you walked out that building, you would say, did I just leave TSA? We had to transform the DNC. Because we feared our safety. Because the hacking went beyond just stealing and corrupting our emails. The hacking went to how the Russians sought to discredit and to destroy the Democratic National Committee. I carry with me this little piece of yellow tape, and it has caution. I wanted to wrap the entire Democratic Party with a yellow caution tape. That's how fearful I was. So you're asking me about one person. I am worried about an institution. I am worried about my democracy. I'm worried about what happens next year when the Russians are not looking at our election system, but because they're transferring this technology to the North Koreans. Everybody is waiting for some missile to come across the ocean when I'm worried about our electrical system, our infrastructure, our hospital. Cyber security is very important, and we should all take steps to make sure that we protect our own little devices that he told you to put on mute. Make sure that you have two-step verification. Make sure that your password is not password lower p or 1, 2, 3, 4. These are things that I learned as chair of the party once I got a better understanding that from a cyber point of view, we were not prepared. And I have to tell you, I spent the last 3 months up at Harvard. Now, I mean, this is every time the winner of the Electoral College loses the popular vote, Donna gets to go to Harvard. And I am
That's
grateful.
not a bad deal.
No, it's a great deal, especially you can get out before the winter storms come. Um, but what an amazing experience, because I had an opportunity to study how Europe reacted to their own cyber experience, their cyber attacks. The German government, I mean, they had an election this year. They had one in France, they had one in the Netherlands, et cetera. In
Several
Austria.
of which had attempted hacking.
Correct. And I wanted to study how Europeans I've also been looking at state governments and what they're doing to protect, because our system of government is decentralized. Elections are decentralized. So I've spent my semester studying that and also writing the first ever cybersecurity survey for campaign officials, campaign staffers, and strategists. I've always, gone out and hired somebody to be a pollster. I did it myself. I was so proud of myself. See, at 57, you can still create new tricks for.
Well, I have one question, and then I'm going to throw it out to the audience.
Yeah, don't ask me about if anybody. I want to hear from you.
Oh,
Okay.
no, we have a vote. Betsy's got a mic. It's part of the drill.
Well,
You dive a lot into cybersecurity through your book. One of the biggest criticisms, however, of the book was that they felt that you were essentially hiding behind cybersecurity to cover up what was essentially a failed strategy to try to win the White House.
I wasn't Hillary Clinton's campaign manager. That's a question for Robbie Mook. I did not devise their strategy. What I learned about their strategy once I became chair. Remember, the seat I sat in most of the year was that of being a pundit. I love being a pundit with a point.
But you were still an active member of the party.
Oh, I was active, but when you're an active member, that means I go to all of the meetings and I do everything that people ask me to do, which is basically, what they ask you to do these days? Raise money, buy. Raise money, buy. But I'm an activist, so I want to what am I raising money for? I didn't even know the extent of the debt until I became chair, because we don't get a copy of the books. Now that all has changed.
And what does that say about the party that you weren't that as an active sitting voting member of the DNC, you weren't actively briefed about the regular fiscal aspects of the party?
Because the chair of the party.
I mean, some people are going to say,
No,
"Oh, you got to be kidding me."
Yeah, well, let me just tell you this. The one area where I was involved is the area that I remain involved, and that is on voting rights. I will always be someone who will pick up the phone and say, we got to do something to protect every citizen, every eligible citizen right to vote. But the party was essentially, it was broke. And what I learned once I became chair is that we couldn't make payroll. And the joint fundraising agreement, all of the candidates signed these agreements, but only one candidate decided to actually raise money into the program. Now, in addition to the joint fundraising agreement, which you all probably heard about now, there was a side agreement.
Clarify that.
Between Robbie Mook, who was the campaign manager for Hillary Clinton, and Amy Dacey, who was the CEO of the Democratic National Committee. And it was signed off by Mark Elias and the lawyers at Perkins Coie. This agreement prevented me from doing my job. I wanted to blow the agreement up. I have text messages. I have everything. I unleash me.
You have receipts, as they say.
I have everything. And the reason why is because it prevented me. Remember that day when Donald Trump said to the black community, "What the hell do you have to lose?" Now, some of you might not know, but I'm black. And I sat there and I'm like, oh my God, he was making a play for the black vote. And I'm like, he's not trying to gain 80, 90%. All he needs is 10 to 15%. And in some states, that would hamper our ability to win those states. Now, I've been involved in politics long enough to know that if a Republican is able to capture that percentage of the black vote, and we're not able to capture that, the same number of votes from white males or white females or Hispanics, we're going to be in deep trouble. And so I wanted to respond on August 19th, not October 19th. Unfortunately, in Democratic campaigns, and you just saw this happen in Alabama, there's no energy at times in the black community. There's no energy sometimes in white communities, no energy with young people. So when the energy is low, you have to go out there with what I call some ads, some surrogates visits, some campaign paraphernalia, et cetera.
You mean the money that the party wouldn't give to you? The campaign was trying to control?
That costs money. And that's when it dawned on me. I'm like, wait a minute, I got to tear up this agreement. This agreement is preventing me from doing my job. And they basically said, no, Madam Chair. And I'm like, no, Madam Chair. The man just said, what the hell you have to lose? And you know, my only response was to, I said in the book, was to write a column. I wrote a column. I wanted to write an ad. I wanted to do something more. But the Clinton campaign controlled our funds. And because they were not worried because of their data and their computer modeling and all of that other stuff that honestly, I have a lot of respect for that. Because look, if you're in the system and I'm in the system, I like the system. But the model the model is going to say, Donna votes in every election, which is true. Donna doesn't need a door knock or 2 pieces of mail or, God forbid, a robocall, because Donna's going to vote. We just got to remind her 2 weeks out that election day is in 2 weeks. But Donna might be, and Jeff, God knows, okay? God knows Jeff need a damn door knock, okay? And somebody might have to knock at his door and bring him some apple pie or something, just to sweeten up his appetite. But this computer modeling, I'm breaking it down for, and of course it's bigger than algorithms, and it's all bigger than this. But what it prevents is it prevents the Democratic Party from reaching out to its most loyal supporters until the end. And I'm like, no, 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 no. See, in 2008, President Obama's campaign was so organic. He knew he had to reach out. He knew he had to go beyond the traditional Democratic coalition. And he built an Obama coalition, which was a very strong coalition. That coalition was in danger of staying home or worse, going in the other direction. And so the reason why I started raising my voice, and the reason why you see in several chapters that I am calling a campaign after I visit Colorado, after I visit Florida, not just non-battleground states. Ladies and gentlemen, I put well over 200,000 miles on this 56-year-old Mustang, right? It's more like a Thunderbird because that's what I like. And yet I could not convince them that we needed this. And here I was on November 4th. They called me, Madam Chair, we're going to give you $1.5 million. Can you spend $1.5 million in 4 days? Well, of course I figured it out. But before I could even call and say, we got $1.5 million, let's spend it before they call me and take it away. Do you know within 1 hour of being told I had $1.5 million, Brandon,
your favorite in this book,
the clerk, because he was a clerk. He was the liaison.
A condescending description of him, wouldn't you agree?
I would call him something else, but I don't want to disturb anybody's holiday music. This young man came back and said, well, it's only $750. Well, wait a minute, it was just 1.5. And at this point in the campaign, I say to myself, we were having problems with millennials. I had also told him that Jill Stein was making inroads within the millennial community, and that I was hearing from my quote-unquote family, I got a large family, that they were hearing these ads. They were seeing these ads on Facebook and Twitter. And you know me, I mean, let me just be honest with you. I don't go on YouTube to look at ads. I really don't. I mean, I have my own quote-unquote channels like HGTV and Bravo and OWN, but I don't go beyond that to like looking up stuff on YouTube. Now I have lately, because now I know that's how the Russians were able to influence so many young people. But when I heard this, I needed the entire $1.5 million. And you know what keeps me up at night? Not the lack of a phone call from Barack Obama or Joe Biden, who, by the way, is a great human being. He just wrote his book, and nobody criticized him. I wonder why. Man. Okay. All right. Man, oh man.
Everybody write that one down?
Okay. Yeah, that's on my list. But $1.5 million, Ed Rendell had just sent me a note that he needed $300,000. Pennsylvania was still not there. And you know what the Clinton campaign told me? Oh, we have a big rally on Monday night. Monday night, ladies and gentlemen, he needs it today. And then G.K. Butterfield in North Carolina say something's going on. Well, they just had a big storm, Hurricane Matthews. And he said, we have problems. People don't know if they can still vote. He said, I need to do some robocalls. I had needed money for Tim Kaine. So they gave me $1.5 million on November 4th at 8:30 in the morning, and by 9:30, the clerk called me and told me it was $750 because the other $750 was going on cable. I said, who watch cable TV on the weekend unless it's a sports? We needed that money in real time, in real places. And I'm not going to even tell you. You know the one that I really I go to bed at night? Michigan. Michigan wanted another 150. And we were not supposed to, the DNC, we were told not to put money in battleground states because the Clinton campaign had those states covered. And yet I had people on the ground in those states telling me, but it's not covered. I'm like, and then I would go back to the Clinton campaign, it's not covered. Well, who's telling you that? And then I would tell them. And then they would like discredit that person. And the same thing happened in Wisconsin, where one of my best friends who know campaigns from like me, Teresa Valmain, you don't get no better than Teresa Valmain in Wisconsin. Teresa said, we got problems in Dane County, we got problems in Milwaukee, blah, blah, blah. Gwen Moore was calling me. I mean, people know my number. They were calling me. And I could not provide those resources. And when we came up short, 78,000 votes in those 3 states, how do you think I felt? You think I wanted a phone call? No.
Let me hold it there. Let's go to the questions. Betsy, you control it. Go for it.
It's all in the book, by the way. I just remember it because I lived it.
Donna,
Hi there.
thanks for having this discussion.
Hi.
You want to stand up, please, so we can hear you?
When the excerpts first came out for your book.
Mic a little closer, please.
Sorry. When the excerpts first came out for your book, there were like a lot of media reports that were claiming that you were saying the primary was rigged for Hillary. I wanted to know if you consider that like a correct characterization, and if not, how would you define how the DNC handled the primary last year?
Thank you. I mean, look, 2 things happened. My publisher gave Politico the right to excerpt the book. I don't know. My favorite chapter is, the one on the firefighters. These are the men and women who came to help us out at the DNC to try to remediate the hacking and to help us with our own cyber defenses. But clearly nobody was interested in that because it wasn't enough, enough controversy. And somehow one of my friends said to me, they said, you know what, they're going to dice and slice some of the parts. And it came across that I was saying the process was rigged. It also, the other thing that I got hit for was that I said I was going to replace Hillary, and no context for any of these. So on the rigged part, Donald Trump then picked it up about 7:45 that morning, his early morning tweets before he has his second cup of Diet Coke and his Big Mac, fish burger, whatever. I need to go over there and cook for him and get him off that stuff. By the time Donald Trump said, see, I said it was rigged. No, it was, here's what I said. I promised Bernie that I would go to the DNC. Part of when I became chair, I talked to both candidates at the convention, and I promised Bernie that I would go department by department to figure out if the process had been rigged or tainted in any way. That's what I said. That's what's in the book. And I found out that it was not rigged because, of course, Hillary Clinton won the primary. She won 3 out of 4 of the first states. She won 9 out of 10 of the African-American votes. She had more votes, more primary votes, more delegate votes, pledged as well as unpledged votes. And I found no evidence. But what I did find, it broke my heart because I felt that in taking over those departments in the DNC prior to capturing the nomination, I know we were broke and they put us on a starvation diet. That gave some credence to the fact that the DNC staff might have been, working for Hillary Clinton. I found no evidence of that, none. And what you found, even in the release of the emails, you found what WikiLeaks did. WikiLeaks had the entire content of, say, every DNC, they had everything. Fancy Bear and Cozy Bear had been in our house. And by the way, if anytime you found out you got bears in your house, get the hell out or get them out. but we didn't. The Fancy Bear and Cozy Bear had been there for for a long period of time. And what they did was they took what they saw as their evidence of certain DNC staffers and others, including myself, and they said, okay, well, we're going to put this out. I know what this piece of paper says. We're going to put this out. They never put the entire content out. They never put it together. They didn't dump it at one time. It was leaked on selective occasions for the big effect, to cause distraction and to sow discord and to discredit and to demean and hurt Hillary Clinton. So that was the whole purpose, and I write about that in the book. If I had to do it again, by the way, it made my book a bestseller. Again, it wouldn't have been my first chapter, but you know, everything worked in divine order.
Betsy, you make the call.
You write in your book that Seth Rich was killed for being white in the wrong neighborhood. Then you go on to say that it might have been the Russians. Why would Moscow have targeted the DNC staffer? Why do you think Russian snipers would come for you next? If Seth Rich was killed for being white, why would you feel forced to have shut your blinds in your office so snipers couldn't see you? And what are your thoughts that Seth Rich was killed for, or on allegations that Seth Rich was killed for leaking DNC emails?
Well, let me start by addressing your last point. There's no evidence whatsoever that Seth Rich computer or any of his personal electronic gadgets was penetrated or infiltrated by any of those malware or spyware. We had every computer, every cell phone, everything at the DNC reviewed on multiple occasions because of the nature of the attack. In the entirety of the book, I dedicate the book to Seth Rich because Seth Rich belonged to, well, let me just say this. Seth Rich was a member of the Voting Rights Department. I was vice chair for civic engagement and voter participation. And when I wrote in the first instance about Seth Rich, when I heard about his death, I talked about July 10th when I got the news that Seth was murdered. Some of you might remember during that period of time, it was following the shooting in Baton Rouge and the shooting, the incident in Dallas. And when I first received this information that Seth was killed, the first thought in my head was, oh my God, Seth was in the wrong neighborhood at the wrong time. We live in Washington, D.C., and it bothered me. It bothered me that Seth was murdered, of course, because he was, belonged to the DNC. He was my kid, and I loved him. But it also bothered me that when I heard about what happened, I just thought that this might have been a racial incident. This was a period of heightened racial tension, not just in D.C., but across the country. Black Lives Matter and the police department and all of the protests across the country. That's number one. So the context of me saying that was the context of what was happening on July 10th, 2016, and what happened to Seth. The context of who could have murdered Seth Rich, I don't know. But what I do know is that his murderer is still the people who murdered him. They have not been brought to justice. There's a big reward for Seth to capture and to find information to bring it to justice. I know that Mayor Bowser and others are still concerned about what happened to Seth Rich, and I hope that we can finally bring to justice what happened. Now, I know some people don't understand anything about cyber security and hacking and harassment. Has anybody here been, as a part of OPM, been harassed by the Chinese through the stealing of personnel files from the Office of Personnel Management?
There was a lot of files hacked in that NPM.
And do you recall at that time you received a notice from OPM saying that you will have your information protected, and that every year, I know every month I get to protect my ID status, okay? Well, when this happened to us at the DNC, the first thing, because I had my information hacked through that illegal cyber attack through OPM. that experience is one where, you know, when you try to go and get a car, you try to go out and take out a loan, you know what that hack can cause you and the discomfort, and I hope you continue to protect your individual identity and status. But when the Russian attack happened, this was one that no one provided us with any kind of protection. And so it was on the responsibility of the Democratic National Committee, who was broke, to provide protection. Similar to what OPM was providing me with the Chinese hacking, I had to provide that to the DNC, to the staff, to the donors, and to others who had their personal information. And this wasn't just the normal threats. Hey, Jeff, you're X. Hey, Donna, you're Y. This went beyond the name calling. This went to our physical infrastructure. This went to our personhood. And I didn't like it one bit. That's why I changed our entire physical landscape at the DNC. We put cameras everywhere. We began to protect ourselves because of the intrusion, because the way in which it came after our lives individually and personally and institutionally. They wanted to send a message. And for whatever reason, why Putin decided that he wanted to destroy it, I kept saying to myself, I used to scream out at night, the Clinton campaign is in Brooklyn. They got money. Just leave us alone. But this harassment continued and continued up until October 21st. And so, no, I don't allude in my book. I don't practice the conspiracy theories that people have used to scar Seth's memory, to hurt his family. I have been to Omaha. I have been to his synagogue. I have cried because of him. I love that boy. He was my child. I dedicated the back rack. I've gone out to raise money to help his family. Seth Rich was a patriot. He was a great American. And he does not deserve to be, in any way, he does not deserve the kind of outrageous conspiracy theories. And yes, I've told that to Sean Hannity. I'll tell it to anyone else. Seth was a patriot. He was a good person. He worked very hard. His colleagues at the DNC miss him. His family, Joel and Mary, they miss him. And they're going through yet another Hanukkah without their son tonight. And I loved him. And he was my child, and I will always say good things about him.
Betsy.
Yes, Betsy. I get emotional about Seth. I love Seth. I love all
Got
my
about
kids at the
5 more
DNC.
minutes, and then we need to leave time for Donna to sign some books. So.
James Mitchell from the great state of Louisiana,
I know.
the old Edwin Edwards days. So
Oh,
we've been
well.
in a few trenches together.
Yes,
And
we have.
a couple of questions. As you look at your body of work over 40 years, what one thing did you really get right? You nailed that thing. What did you screw up? God, if I had to do this, what was I thinking about? This was the craziest thing I've ever done. The second part. And then after 40 years, great years, where do you go from here? What's your next act look like?
Well, the screw-ups are obvious. I'm Catholic, man. How much time you have? Bless me, Father, I've sinned. What about you?
Enough for us to get in one more question.
Here it is. This is. He knows I like to talk loud. You know, I look back. We got the King holiday. I talked about the playground from my beloved Kenner, Louisiana. Mary Landrieu, first statewide campaign, 1987. I can't tell you the number of candidates I've worked for over the years, both at the state and local level. Justin Fairfax just recently. I get it right a lot of the time. When I get it wrong, I get it wrong. But that doesn't mean I won't keep trying. I'm very proud that we got Obama right twice. I'm proud of that. I'm proud of the efforts, you know, all of the major national events I've organized, from the King holiday to the 20th anniversary. I've been around a long, long time. Hands Across America, housing now, blah, blah, blah. My most proudest accomplishment is that I've been a college professor for 23 years. I've lectured at over 210 campuses, and I love my kids, I love my students, and I can't wait for this next generation to take their seats at the table. I've gotten it wrong. I've been fired on national television for saying things because I got a big mouth, because I will speak my truth. And I did amends for that and penance. But the good news is that at 58 at the end of this week, I feel no ways tired. I love what I'm working on now, this whole thing about how to protect our cyber, how to protect it from future hackings. I know there are people here who will tell me, well, you know, the United States has meddled here, and the United States, yes, I understand the long history of our country, but I believe in democracy. I believe in a strong party system, and I believe in the press, and I want to do everything in my power to strengthen our democracy so that we can be prepared for any other hacking that might occur next time.
Let's get Jim over here. Here and then Jim. Yeah.
Wow.
Thanks. Donna, I've admired your work for decades and have been at every convention since '72, but at the press club we got to be objective, so here's a hard question, okay? Despite the call for the new rules, isn't it the role of the DNC chair to support the presumptive nominee to strengthen the party for the general election? Didn't Hillary actually gain in the late primaries like California after Debbie added debates wanted by Bernie? And wouldn't you have had to get DNC votes to replace Hillary when she temporarily got sick? And that would have lost. And then finally, the key question, wouldn't Hillary be president if not for the 10-point shift immediately following the Comey letter he soon retracted, but no one noticed that?
I didn't write down all your questions, so
Okay.
help me out if I forgot any of those. Let's talk about the chapter on collapse, because that's a chapter that many of you, I've been on the Rules Committee for 30 years. Many of those rules
I think
I
can
helped
melt.
to draft.
Thanks.
I helped to expand participation. I
I'll
understand the rules. The rules also of the convention, as well as the rules of the party, says the chair shall confer with. The chair shall confer with. I assumed the title of interim chair because I wanted to make it very clear that I didn't want to be the permanent chair. Some people want me to be the permanent chair. I'm like, oh, hell no, I'm out of here. I'm done. I've been chair twice. So when Hillary stumbled, read that chapter, read it very closely, because what it says is that when she stumbled, I was immediately on the phone. I got a call from a reporter. And then I had another reporter tell me that they had a video at a time when I was asking the Clinton campaign, what is happening? I was getting called by the media as well as by Don Fowler Sr., who was the former chair, that the DNC needed to prepare. And I kept my own counsel because that's what I do. And yes, it is true that when I took on the role of chair, I knew that Hillary was the nominee, and I gave her my all until the bitter end for not one nickel. And I traveled. I got reimbursed later after a resolution was passed to reimburse me for my travel and my time. And the fact that I had to do it with my own nickel and dime because I cared about her and the country, ain't nobody ever said thank you for that. But I understand that. And that's why I wrote that chapter called Patsy the Slave. I'm not Patsy. I'm free. And I shouldn't have to beg when I'm out there raising money and traveling. When I'm out in the fundraiser with Sheryl Sandberg, as I write, when we raise over $2 million, the chair of the party should say, yes, we're going to spend some of that money helping to get the vote out. I wasn't trying to help to get Donna out. I didn't have not one consultant on the contract for me. They were on the DNC payroll to help elect people from the State House all the way up to the Oval Office. And that is what the chair of the party. I don't work for the nominee. The chair is independent. The chair should always be independent. And there never should have been any conflict. Since you go back, do you recall when I became campaign manager for Al Gore in 1999? I'll never forget that because he asked me. I've never been proposed by any man, so I was excited. And it was only to be campaign manager. But do you recall what I did right after that? I stepped down as co-chair of the Rules and Bylaws Committee because I never wanted Bill Bradley, then Senator Bradley from New Jersey, to think that I was going to tip the scales for Al Gore. Now, I did go out there and work hard to defeat Bill Bradley and elect Al Gore. But that was the last time I served as a quote-unquote staff person in any capacity for the Democratic Party. 2000. So from 2000 to 2016, I have devoted my life to this party that has given me so much. A kid who had a head start in life because of Lyndon Johnson. A kid who got to college because of the efforts of Jimmy Carter. And yes, I have so many reasons why I've been a Democratic activist all my life. And that's why I could go down to Alabama. This chair, this former chair, can go any place in this country. In fact, I need to get to Montana soon. so that all 50 states, and then I can be Miss USA without the bikini. I don't know if I've answered all of your questions, but the chair has enormous powers. And when Debbie set the debate schedule, and Tulsi, and Donna, and R.T. Ryback, and Mary Elena DeRosa, and all of the other officers, and Ray Buckley, the vice chairs, we had no say in that. When Martin O'Malley would call me and say, why can't we have 7 debates, 8 debates? I don't care. I'm on TV. We can have 10 debates. You do notice that when the debates were expanded, who got the bulk of those debates? My network. Well, one of them, CNN. Sorry, Fox, Al Jazeera, all the rest.
We didn't get any.
I know you didn't get none.
Sorry.
But my point is that the chair, and then we fought to expand them, and we were able to get that. And then I fought to do something else, not just to expand the number of debates, but also to expand the number of moderators, to expand the kind of questions, and I got in trouble for that too. So look, I've been involved in politics all my adult life. I'm gonna fight as hard as I've ever fought if I ever go back in there. But I fought to ensure that the party was responsive to all 5 candidates, not just one, all 5 of them. I gave money to all 5 of them. Some of them got 20, some got 25. If Bernie said his average contribution was 27, I sent him 27. I thought that was fun. But you know, it really was. The campaign made a strategic error, and that is they took over the functions of the DNC at a time the DNC was broke. Now, in terms of what if, I got a whole bunch of. Yeah, Comey. Look, before Comey, again, in my book I talk about this. If you look at the second debate and before Comey, the Hillary and Trump began to almost, the race got close. Comey, I got criticized for saying when Comey letter came out by 10/28, I said, you know what I said? Because I was in Utah on 10/27. I said, we just got hit by a 16-wheeler. And a Clinton camp, 18. Thank you, I'm sorry, 18-wheeler. 16-wheeler I talked about the other day. 18-wheeler. And you know why? I said it just stopped any momentum we had going into the closing days. Yes, because I think the voters that impacted, along with, and I mentioned this in the book, I also mentioned in the book that there had to be some, I don't know if the word is collusion, but there was some connection between what was happening every night. And you know, the moment Donald Trump would mention my name, remember, I have managed a campaign. I have been through enough political cycles. He would say, Donna Brazile, I'm like, okay. And then the phone calls would start. And those of you who know anything about American politics know that the N word is one of those names that people like to hurl out when they see the color of your skin. And then there's the B word and the C word because they see your gender. But then I started getting the combination of the N, the B, the C, and then they would call me a monkey. I said, whoa. Now I'm enlightened, like most people. Now why would you call me a monkey on top of the N, the B, and the C? And there was something about these bots and trolls, and I kept asking, I said, are we using bots and trolls? Because these are not real Americans. An American just call you 1 or 2, maybe 3 if they're really pissed off. But this was something different. And I kept wondering, I said, who is dealing with this Facebook, Twitter stuff? It was almost like you had these little these cyber armies coming after. And you know what? I didn't know if they were serious or not. I didn't know if they were really going to threaten someone on my staff or me or what. I didn't know. I had no idea. But what I did know is that as chair of the party, I had to protect them. And that's what I knew to do.
Jim, and then I'll reserve the last question.
Hello, Don. It's good to see you again.
Thank you, Jim.
Why was the server never turned over to the FBI? There's a significant number of Americans who doubt the allegations that it was the Russians that did the hacking. Why wouldn't you avail yourself of the many resources of the federal government to get to the bottom of this so that everybody knows what happened?
Well, you know, that was one of my first questions because when I became chair, I was like, first of all, so the first time I heard about the quote-unquote hacking, it was in June. I heard about it. My machines had already started to have some really interesting. I had a DNC phone and a DNC computer and DNC email because, as I mentioned, I did a lot of stuff in the voting rights field. And I learned from Patrice and Julie, some of the young people I mentioned in the party who I adore. I said to them, "What's going on?" And then I called Greg, and they said, "Well, we're told to turn in all of our systems." So everyone turned in everything. And what I learned later, after June, when Debbie and Amy and others began to do remediation, with CrowdStrike, that a firm that we hired, and when the person we hired was the former number 3 at the FBI. And they worked it out. They got a list from the FBI, the things that the FBI wanted. And in that list of items that the FBI requested, they asked for a replica or an exact copy of everything that we had from our server, knowing that if we got rid of our server, we actually would get rid of our entire database. Our brain would be gone. And then essentially we would have nothing. So we made a replica of everything and turned it all over to them. We also let them see all of the evidence from all of the individual computers, from everything else. So we, trust me, it cost us quite a penny to make replicas. And then we destroyed the machines and bought staff people new laptops. And if you can imagine this, right before the convention, these staffers had lost all of their data, all of their materials. Everything was gone. Everything was wiped clean. But we made a replica. And in the book, I described how in the last 2 weeks of the election, we had to make another decision as to whether or not to shut down that server, to actually kill it, because we kept getting, we kept getting more spyware. They were so stealth. The operation was so stealth. But we turned over, and I don't know if you saw the last testimony or the second to last testimony that James Comey gave. The first round was always the DNC didn't cooperate. I knew that was not the case, but I had to wait until somebody at the Bureau, every time they would say that about us, I would go after them and say, "What the hell are you talking about? We're giving you everything you're asking for." And when Homeland Security came to us on August 8th, I was chair of the party then, they wanted to start the remediation process. If you read in my book, I said we should have went over to the Defense Department. Everybody wanted to do remediation. Nobody could help us do cyber protection, defense. This is not software you can go to Staples or Best Buy. This is not available at Office Depot. This is expensive stuff, and it costs us millions of dollars to remediate. But everything that the federal government, and in fact, in the book, you'll also find that we started giving the FBI material and others that they didn't know about, because we even learned more when I brought in our own hackers. Yes, I had to bring in my own hackers. I got smart about cyber. I went to all of the experts. I convened a cybersecurity task force. By the way, has Donald Trump convened one? No. I figured out the technology we needed to protect our infrastructure. Has Donald Trump done that for the country? Has Jeff Sessions? I can't say the DHS secretary just came on board. We need to do the same things that the DNC completed at the federal level, because if our infrastructure get attacked, can we tear down? Can we take down our entire electrical grid if one is attacked? What impact that will have across the country? These are questions that we should be asking ourselves as a nation now, and not just as a political party.
So
yeah, one more question.
one more.
Did I run out my time?
No, I get one more question. It's the presidential privilege. But before I do that,
presidential privilege. You know, I've had one black male president. Come on, I'm ready for the first woman.
You already have. You have two in your lifetime.
Yeah,
you're sitting across from one.
Wow.
Anyway, before the last question, we have a traditional mug that we give out to all of our headliners. So we want to give you that as a thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. I have some coffee with chicory.
I brought some back, but last time I was in New Orleans, by the way,
you.
from Cafe du Monde.
Appreciate that.
Two quickie on the calendar for those of you who came in just a little bit late. Tomorrow, my predecessor Thomas Burr will moderate a discussion with MSNBC's Lawrence O'Donnell on his book on Playing with Fire: The 1968 Election and the Transformation of American Politics. and Walter Isaacson, another Louisianan like Donna, will have his book on a breakfast talk on December 18th and 8 at 8 a.m. here at the club. I do want to thank the headliners team once again, chaired by Betsy Fisher-Martin, Lisa Matthews, and their great squad that put everything together tonight. So, throughout the night, you were talking about different things that are in the book about the role of being disrespected on the case of gender, race, position, and even, well, I'll just keep it with those three. Has the party learned anything from these heartfelt, detailed sharing episodes that you've laid out in your book about in terms of the ability to be more progressive? You know, the Democrats long say they're progressive, but there are a lot of not so progressive episodes that you lay out here in brutal detail. So is it more talk than action that the Democratic Party is going to advance in race, advance in gender, advance in even in respecting the role of position going forward?
You know, the fact that I became chair of the party twice, the fact that I'm an officer of the party, and I was an officer for 8 years. And prior to my tenure, we had Lottie Shackelford, Bill Lynch, and of course, the Honorable former Ron Brown. Our party has made a lot of progress. The fact that we've nominated the first African American who became President of the United States, and we nominated the first woman to become President of the United States. I think the Democratic Party has made a lot of progress. This election was one of the most disruptive in our political cycle. It was disruptive for many reasons. The norms that normally would have established the ground rules, they were broken. We had a candidate who received a zillion times more press coverage simply because he was a reality TV show star and he could wake up and call into a television show and become the headliner. So the fact that I describe in my book episodes by which I thought the chair was not part of the strategic apparatus to win the election. This is an old age fight. I call it an age fight because, you know, when nominees are often granted that power to go over to the headquarters, they want to reshape the party in their image. The party was reshaped in the image of Bill Clinton when he was president. It was reshaped in the image of President Obama when he was president. And we were in this period of, you know, President Obama transitioning out and Hillary Clinton transitioning in. And I got caught right in the middle of it. And it's odd that, you know, I would get caught in the middle of this transition, somebody who is female as well as a minority. But you know what? I survived it. I wish the party, I still believe that she was the best candidate. I still believe that she would have made a terrific president. But the party went into the last election cycle hampered with several problems, which were exacerbated by the hacking. But we had a very difficult season. We had a headwind. We had no wind toward our back. It's often hard to get someone elected after you've had a two-term president. That's rare, as you well know. But I still believe that Hillary Clinton was best prepared to become president of the United States. And unfortunately, we fell short. She didn't fall short. We fell short. We fell short.
But do you feel the party has learned anything?
Oh, absolutely. The party that you see today that's coming together, not just the Unity Commission, but the party that is now running candidates in all 100 seats in Virginia, that's a party of the future. A party that is invested in Alabama is a party of the future. A party that just invested in Georgia and Kansas and South Carolina and Montana, that's a party of the future. So this is a party that understands that we cannot cherry pick candidates. We cannot only run in so-called blue states. We have to protect our entire turf. But here's my advice to the Democratic Party, if they want advice from an old hand. and old in terms of, experience, not age yet. We have to do a better job in opening up the doors to let more people in. We need new voices, and we need fresh blood. And I love my leaders. I'm not asking anybody to leave the room. I'm telling people it's time to start scooting over. Scoot over. Make room for others. We have a generation that is willing to serve, but we need to allow them in the room. We got to give them a seat at the table. I got my seat at a young age. I was able to do Billy Gus' campaign by the 1976. I wasn't 18 until the Dave Treen race in 78. I waited a long time, but I got involved at an early age. We got to give our young millennials an opportunity to serve. We also, next year is going to be an awakening year. We're going to have more women on the battlefield than ever before. We need to respect these voices, give women an opportunity to campaign in their own voice. Let's stop looking at their hairlines and their clothes and their hairstyle and the sound of their voice. You know how many times I would go on TV and say, she's not screaming, talking about Hillary. No, she's not emotional, or defending her against all kinds of criticism. Well, we don't know if we like her. What? I mean, come on. I mean, the stuff that we had to go through. Hillary has helped us and enabled us, Secretary Clinton, to get through, I think, a very important period of American politics and culture. Now it's our turn. And I tell my kids and my students at Harvard and at Georgetown, why you? Because there's no one better. Why now? Because tomorrow not soon enough. We need them on the battlefield. We need to give them a seat at the table. And if there's one thing I want to do, this young man asked me what I want to do with the rest of my life. I want to see that they get an opportunity to serve, to make a difference. And I'm proud of them because I know they will do a great job.
Thank you, Donna Brazile.
Thank you. Buy the book. Thank you, brother.
Thank you.